Good afternoon, good evening, good morning. Thank you for joining me for what is class 7 of the second foundation course on Buddhist refuge. So before we get started, let's bring to mind our motivation for being here in this course and being here in this class today. What keeps us here in this cycle of suffering is a mistake, a simple mistake that we make about how the world around us and how we ourselves exist. It's a very simple mistake, but without being taught about it from our dear teachers, we probably wouldn't notice that we're making this mistake. We tend to smooth over things that are incongruous, things that don't seem to make sense. Like, why does when some people take aspirin, does their headache go away? And when other people take aspirin, it doesn't go away. Like, if aspirin could really cure a headache, wouldn't it work all the time? But we tend to say, like, oh, well, you know, it just didn't work for them. I mean, we don't take the bottle of aspirin back to the store and say, hey, this is no longer working for me. We just say, oh, something happened where today it didn't work, and probably something I ate interfered with the medicine, or we make up some story, or we don't even think about it because we all know sometimes aspirin doesn't work. We do this with so many things that don't seem to make sense. And we just don't realize that how we've treated others in the past creates what we experience in the future. If we help people who are sick, if we help alleviate their pain, and we then create a future experience of aspirin working. It's very simple, but so many people don't know. And while it's a simple mistake, we need to study to learn more about exactly what is the mistake so we understand it clearly and correctly, so that when we do see it directly, that this me does not exist the way I thought it did. We will enter the stream and get out of suffering. So may everything we talk about today and all of our work in this course plant the seeds for us to be able to enter the stream. And if we've already entered it, to be able to continue on the stream until we reach full enlightenment. Sangye Chiran Suki Chukdam La Changchu Pardu Dakni Kyapsuchi Daki Chushe Gipe Sunam Ki Jola Pinchir Sangye Druparsho Sangye Chiran Soki Chuknam La Jangchu Pardu Dakni Kapsuchi Daki Chushe Gipe Sunam Ki Jola Pinchir Sangye Duparsho Sangye Chiran Soki Chuknam La Jangchu Pardu Dakni Kapsuchi Daki Chushe Gipe Sunam Ki Jola Pinchir Sangye Duparsho Sashi Puki Jukshin Metok Tram Rira Blingshin Yende Gempadi Sangye Shindu Mikde Owarki Jokun Namdak Shingla Juparsho Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kamnirya Dayami. So, does anybody have any questions before we get started? Perfect, students. Thank you for being here, allowing me to create that karma of sharing these teachings. You're allowing me to plant very powerful seeds, teaching to all of these high-level spiritual practitioners. So let's see. So today we begin our journey in this course to, sorry, I'm trying to choose which view. There we go. Our journey in this course on emptiness. We're going to have several classes on emptiness. And before we get into different logical proofs about emptiness, we need to talk about what are we saying is empty? What are we saying is absent? We need to understand what that is precisely so that we can identify whether or not it exists. Right? We can't say that there's, there's no one playing violin in my room behind me unless we know what it means for someone to play the violin. If we didn't know what I was talking about, we wouldn't know what to look for as we're looking to see, oh, is there someone playing violin behind Utpala? Right? So our first word and the word of the day in Tibetan is gakja. Gakja. So please say gakja. It literally means the thing that we deny. Gak means to deny. And then ja, this ja with this spelling, when you put it after a verb, it turns it into an object. It turns the phrase into a noun. So instead of to deny, it is gakja, the thing that we deny, the object that we deny. And again, we're talking about when we do analytical meditation, when we look to see what are we saying emptiness is empty of. All philosophical schools agree that what we're looking for, or what we say emptiness is empty of, is self-existence. That a thing, that something has a nature of existing from its own side. Everyone agrees that that's what it means. The four schools differ on more precisely what that means. But generally speaking, they all agree that selflessness or emptiness is the absence of some kind of self nature, some kind of self existence. I've talked about before in this class when we talked about cessations, remember? That a cessation is the absence of something that once existed, right? Like a belief in the tooth fairy or a belief in Santa Claus. That we once had as a child, now we have a cessation for it. It no longer exists for us, but it once did, with emptiness and talking about the absence of self-existence. We're talking about something that never did exist. It doesn't exist now, and it never could exist in the future. It's a non-existent thing. So gotcha means the thing that we deny when we're doing our analytical meditation on emptiness. And we need to remember that we're wearing a particular philosophical hat, a particular Buddhist philosophical hat in this course. We're wearing it's Svatantrika in Sanskrit, and we call it the independent branch of the middle way school. So of the four philosophical schools, it's the highest school, and the highest school has two levels. It has the independent branch and it has the consequence branch. And those names are just related to words for how they like to debate, actually, interestingly enough. But anyway, the independent branch is the lower of the two branches in the middle way school. So we need to remember that we're wearing that hat. That this is, in other words, not the highest view of the Gaksha. Like I said, there's different schools have, different schools have different things that they call the Gaksha. Independent. What does independent mean? I'm hoping this will become really clear by the end of this class. Although we're not going to talk about it specifically, but hopefully it makes sense. They hold that there is, like, when you are debating someone, And if you say something, when you say something, that have, your words contain within them some kind of truth or meaning that the person you're debating with will understand. Whereas the consequence branch, the way they debate is that when someone comes to them with, they make a claim. Bananas are, I'm trying to think of a color that I know they are not. Bananas are blue. I've heard of purple bananas. I've heard of green bananas. I've never heard of a blue banana. So let's just say, even if there is a blue banana, you can tell me if there is one. We'll pick a different color. But I've even heard of red bananas, but I've never heard of a blue banana. So they say, someone comes and says, bananas are blue. The independent branch of the middle way would try and convince them using logic that they're really yellow, or whatever the most popular color of banana is in the country you come from, or they come from. Where someone from the consequence branch would hold up something yellow. It's my cough medicine, which has been working. Yay! I have to rejoice about that. They would hold up something yellow, right? And say, oh, I suppose that this is blue. So it's absurd to say that this is blue. I have to cover up this blue part. So you just see the yellow part. So they present an absurd consequence that yellow is blue. So hopefully, where the independent branch would, I should have thought more carefully about what to use as an example of the debate, because I'm trying to think of what words you would use that would convey a meaning. That yellow is not blue. It's too early in the morning for me to debate. But anyway, they hold that that there's some meaning to the words, and that who they're debating will understand what it is they're trying to say. Like, I'm hoping that you're understanding what I'm trying to say by the words I use. So we're wearing their hat, the Svatantrika, or the independent branch of the middle way school. So the first thing we need to do before we meditate on emptiness is we need to understand what the gaksha is. Of course, using the word is tricky, right? Because the gaksha, by definition, is the thing we're saying does not exist. So we should probably use words like what the gaksha refers to. Understand what the gotcha refers to. Understand the mistake we're making. That when we see the absence of that mistake in direct meditation, I mean, in deep meditation directly, that it will start us on the, we will enter the stream. It will start us on the process of getting out of the realm of suffering. So, what is this gotcha? What is this object we deny? So, like I said earlier, if you don't know what, like if someone asks you to help them find their earring, like, oh, my earring fell out. Could you help me find it? And what do we ask? We say, what does it look like? And we find out, oh, it's a gold hoop, or oh, it's a pearl. So we know what to look for when we're helping our friend find their earring. Of course, that is something that exists that we're trying to find. But it's the same thing with something that we're going to deny the existence of. We need to know what it is that we're looking for. Because if we don't, we won't have the certainty that it doesn't exist. If we're very general, if we just say self-existence, well, we can meditate on that phrase, but it's not going to have the power because we don't know exactly what we're looking for when we say the phrase self-existent. So we have to be able to identify it really clearly, this mistake that we're making. Here's two lines from Master Shantideva, which I think this comes from the part of the course that I'll be teaching, let's see, in about a year from now, I think. I think so. Maybe two. But takpe ngula marekpar deyi ngu mensin mayin. It's a very famous way to start a debate, apparently, in monasteries. Takpe ngula marekpar. Until you are able to find what it is that you think exists, until you are able to find what it is you think exists, you will never be able to realize that it doesn't. And this is not just semantics. This is so crucially important for seeing emptiness directly. We need to have a lot of kelwa. We need to have a lot of spiritual goodness. We need to have planted a lot of seeds for wisdom. And it's okay if it just sounds like, I'm just talking about, semantics or words. That's okay. Um, Plant the seeds for goodness. And what does that mean? Like anything we do that helps another person learn something, like if we're teaching someone a language or teaching someone how to read, or we're teaching our child something about, how to live in the world. Uh, we can do these things and with the motivation that every living being uh, be able to learn and understand these precious teachings that can get us out of suffering and dedicate it towards becoming enlightened so that we can teach others these uh, critical ideas. Uh, so we can like spend some time creating these kind of seeds to understand this course or whatever it is that we're struggling with, right? If you come to Mixed Nuts and the translator course and it just all sounds very confusing, then plant some seeds for understanding and and they will ripen eventually. And so come back to it and listen to it again. So let's see. The question here is about suffix ja makes a verb a noun, and pa makes a noun to a verb. Well, they say that about pa, but it's not always the case. Not always the case. At least in my struggle to understand this language, sometimes I'll see a word that ends in pa, and it's not. It's not a verb. Like for example, tompani is the word for emptiness. Tongpa means empty, and ni is like it's the NESS suffix, but it's like itself. Like if you were to say Min Tret herself, it would be Min Tret Ni. So, but there's the tong pa, there's the pa, and that's not a verb. So it's not always the case. Okay, back to the gotcha. So a gotcha, if it could exist, would exist in the way that is opposite to the way that we say things exist deceptively. Remember, 2 classes ago, we talked about um, the the 2 truths. We have ultimate truth and deceptive truth. Ultimate truth is the ultimate nature of a thing, which is empty of being self-existent. And deceptive truth is not really a truth, but it means to a mind that can be deceived. And this is more detail than I really want to get into about that word deceptive. But deceptive truth, we could say like lies about what it is. So this thing, if you are who you appear to be, and even if you're an Arya, this still appears to be a thing that has some nature of its own. It has some existence from its own side. Like, I bought this pen at a store. It came in a box that was packed by a robot in a factory where they melted plastic and some other stuff and made this thing. That had nothing to do with me helping other people to communicate. So a gotcha would exist in a way that is opposite to the way that things exist. So how do things exist deceptively? Deceptive reality is another word for dependent arising or dependent origination. And what dependent arisings very generally is everything we experience. Every positive thing we experience, not positive like good, but positive like manifest. This is a dependent arising. And the way it exists is because I helped someone perhaps learn how to communicate, or I helped them communicate. And then it created the seeds for me to experience being able to communicate. And now I have this tool because I planted the seeds by helping someone else. I have this tool that I can use to communicate. And it's, I don't know, I just, as an aside, I just feel so fortunate that Geshe Michael uses this thing as his example, because now it's even more precious, right? And now I'm creating these seeds to help people understand the highest teachings, not just communicate, which is really cool. But anyway, a thing's dependent arising, even in this school, and we're going to get into that in more detail in a second. But we say a seed ripens, right, from things we've done in the past. And precisely what happens, we're going to talk about. But because that seed ripens, we experience this thing the way we do. We experience this as a tool for communication and not a chew toy. Although sometimes, now I'm not really one for chewing my pen. I know some people do. Not a chew toy, but a pen to communicate with. And that's because of seeds from what I planted, from what I did in the past. So we have to, so the gotcha is the opposite of that. The opposite of this thing being what it is because of my seeds from my past actions ripening into that experience of this thing as what it is. So what's the opposite of that? It's the way that we normally think about a pen as coming from the pen factory, of having a nature of being a pen from its own side. It is, we could say 100% penness is what this thing is. And dogs are just wrong. Anyone who thinks otherwise, they're just wrong. The correct thing to think about this is that it is a pen. When it was created, it was a pen. When it was pieces of pen, it was going to be a pen. It will forever be a pen, this thing. So that would be the gotcha. That would be the thing that we deny. So the question here is, if we can gawk all possibilities, if we can deny all possibilities that this thing comes from itself, then we have emptiness. Yeah, then we reach its emptiness because we look for a pen that could come from its own side, and we can't find it. So we find this thing's emptiness. The absence that this thing has is penness from its own side. The dog isn't wrong. It is a chew toy to a dog because of, I don't know, playing. They planted the seeds to see everything as a toy. So we have to understand to get to the gotcha so that we can get to emptiness. We have to understand, how do things exist deceptively? How do things exist as dependent arisings? According to the independent branch of the middle way, they agree the gotcha is a non-existent thing, a thing that never did exist, doesn't exist, never could exist. How do they define what's going on with dependent arisings, with deceptive reality? And so I want to just, like, a confusion I had when I first heard about these things like decades ago was that deceptive reality, right? The things that appear to us, it because of the word deceptive, it's like, well, that's wrong, right? If we use a word like deceptive, there's something wrong going on. But we have to like back away when we're talking about appearances, when we're talking about whether it's the appearance of sound or the appearance of an object or the appearance of a touch or of a breeze on our face, all of those things are positive things in the sense that they are things we can experience. They are things that are manifest, that have come into being. They're deceptive because we are deceived, because we are mistaken. They deceive us by appearing to us to have some identity from their own side. A breeze as opposed to a very strong wind. We think that comes from movement of the air, right? It comes from our seeds ripening into an experience. It doesn't come from movement of the air. So we are deceived as to its nature. But when we're talking about just a thing, even though we call this deceptive reality because it's a thing, it's an object, it's also just the simple arising of an object due to our past actions, due to how we helped other people in the past. So when we say the gotcha is the opposite, we have to be careful. If you are who you appear to be, if you haven't reached Chuchok, which we've talked about before, the highest stage of an ordinary person's life, someone who has not seen emptiness directly, the very highest stage is seeing dependent arising directly. Seeing, and I'm going to take off my Svatantrika hat for a moment just to make this point, because we're more familiar with the Prasangika hat, with the consequence branch hat. We see directly that there's like the sensation of an image coming out and and that we're slapping an image on top of a black and clear object. We see ourselves taking in sensory data, black, clear, long, cylindrical. We see those sensory data coming in, and we feel slapping our mental image of pen onto this thing. So that is, we have not seen that until we get to the end of the path of preparation, right before we go to the path of seeing. Before then, dependent arisings or deceptive reality. So that's still deceptive reality, but we're seeing it, right? Before that, before we see what's going on, when we perceive objects, we think they have some identity from their own side, some quality of being from their own side. And so when we say the gotcha is the opposite of deceptive reality, we're not talking about the one that deceptive reality before Chuchok, before we see ourselves taking in sensory data, and then a mental image coming from the ripening of a seed and covering that data like sauce on ice cream. So we're talking about the latter. That's real deceptive truth. The mechanism of perception, the mechanics of a seed ripening into the experience of an object. That's deceptive reality. Okay? And that we will see when we reach the highest point of the path of preparation. So when we're saying that the gotcha is the opposite of deceptive reality, it's the opposite of that highest point, that highest understanding of what's going on when we perceive something or we interact with something, right? So from the consequence branch point of view, things are, they say, minde shaksam. Things are just names and terms, and this Ming means name, and day with this sa suffix. Otherwise, it's just da. Da, that's the mental image. That's how this mental image comes, and we say pen. That's what's going on in deceptive truth. So the gotcha would be the opposite of that, which just so happens to be the way we normally, before we heard anything about pens and chew toys and humans and dogs, before we heard any of that, yes, this pen came from the factory. It's a pen. It's nothing else. If you think it's a chew toy, you're wrong. So that's what the gotcha is. Because we haven't even seen deceptive reality yet if we haven't reached the highest point of the path of preparation. We're not even to that point yet if we haven't reached the highest point of the path of preparation. Okay. So let's talk about then, what does the independent branch of the middle way say is going on? What are the mechanics of perception? They say lo nu me la nang wei wang shaksam. And I won't make you repeat all that, but we will go through the words because it's very important to understand from their point of view. They say that well, let's go through the words first. Lo means mind. Ne means like hurt or sick. Me, this is the negative me. There is no. So lo nume. Lo nume means the mind isn't sick. It's an unimpaired state of mind. So it's not messed up by inner forces or outer forces. It's not messed up because we have liver disease and we see things as yellow. It's not messed up because we've taken hallucinogenic drugs and the pen appears like a dog. I don't know. It's a state of mind that's unimpaired, that's clear, not infected by anger or alcohol or drugs or illness. And then there are the outer factors that could mess up our perception of things, are things like when you're in a subway station or you're in traffic and there's multiple lanes and you have sort of limited vision, the other car or subway car even could look like it's moving when it's your car that's moving, but you're moving so slowly you don't feel it. So you think the other car is moving. So that's an outer factor that could mess up your mind, impair your mind. Okay, so the first thing is well, let's continue on. Sorry, you need some more words. Nagwa means to appear. La means to hear. Wang means power. It's also the word for the Diamond Way. In Diamond Way, it's the word for empowerment. Wanggi with the sa suffix by power, shock, established as existing, established as existing, some, just that, only that. So put all this together, and the independent branch is saying that for you to establish as existing, for you to experience deceptive reality, for you to experience dependent arising, remember the highest point, two things are going on. The thing appears to you, and you establish it as existing as that. So if we're talking about this thing appears to you as pen, and you establish it as a pen. So it's like there's two movements going on. This thing is appearing as a pen, and I am perceiving it as a pen. There's some penness about this thing, and that penness is coming this way, and my calling it a pen is coming this way. Both of those things have to be present. So to the independent branch of the middle way, there is something about this that is pen. It's not the whole thing. If I weren't here, it would not be a pen. If I were not perceiving it as a pen, it would not be a pen. So I have to perceive it as a pen. But for me to perceive it as a pen, there has to be some penness coming from the object, appearing to me. Geshe Michael calls it 50-50. Half of a thing's existence is coming from a thing, and then the other half is coming from the seeds ripening in your mind and calling it what you call it. So the consequence branch we talked about, it's 100% coming from you. The independent branch, those two parts have to be there. This has some penness about it, and it appears as a pen, and I have the seeds ripening to experience it, establish it as a pen, both going on at the same time. So that's what those two parts have to be present. And the way they talk about this, and this is going to show up in a couple of different times in this whole long course series. They use a metaphor to talk about this. And it's called Shingigyu in Tibetan. Shing is a stick, and gyu is magic. So this metaphor is based on some magic, some trickery that was apparently common in India a long time ago. I have not experienced this kind of magic, but apparently it used to happen. So you're on the street in India, and there is a magician, and people start to gather around, and he has a stick, and he places the stick on the ground, and then he speaks some incantation, some magical words, and sprinkles some magical dust in people's eyes, and the stick becomes a horse. Everyone backs away from the stick. Whoa, there's a wild horse. Everyone is tricked. The stick becomes a horse to them because of this magic. I would like to experience that sometime. I think it would be fun. So the stick in the metaphor, the stick has some, I don't know if it works for that. Let's see. There is an object there. There's the stick. And we think of it as a horse because of the incantation, the magical spell, and because of the magical powder. So they talk about the stick having to be there, and then the magical powder, but it doesn't really. In one way, the metaphor doesn't fit because that's an impaired state of mind, right? Right? If you've got someone blowing magical dust in your eyes, you're no longer unimpaired. But but there is, the magic makes you see something, like a seed ripening makes you see something. And then the stick, I mean, there's nothing about a stick that suggests a horse just because of the magic. But we're going to talk about the metaphor in a different way once we've finished talking about deceptive reality from the independent branch point of view. So, those two parts have to be present. The unimpaired state of mind and the object appearing, the 50-50, the object appearing in a certain way because it has some bit of penness to it, and me perceiving it, experiencing it as a pen. It's coming both ways. The second part of the phrase, and I'm not going to read all this to you, is that it has to have these two ways. Something coming from the object side and something coming from my side in order for there to be a dependent arising. That's what's going on whenever we experience anything. Music has some musicness about it. And my experience of it is music. It's coming from my side. Both have to be there. The thing does not exist out there in and of itself. The thing does not exist from its own side. There has to be some participation from my mind. Okay? So it's two things plus it doesn't exist from its own side. If I were to walk out of the room, then the thing sitting on my table wouldn't be a pen for me. anymore. The pen wouldn't exist. When I go into the kitchen and I shut my office door, my whole office doesn't exist because it's not appearing to me, and I'm not thinking of it. So for me, in those moments, my office doesn't exist. Of course, Buddhists see all objects in all three times, so they are perceiving that it exists. I have memory of it existing if I think about it. But from the Svatantrika, from the independent branch of the middle way point of view, it's not existing for you any longer. So the gotcha then would be that this thing exists out there on its own, from its own side. The independent branch says that specifically that that's not the way. Oh, I made so many mistakes. Oh, this is supposed to be a W. Well, I'll fix that. Uh, it says clearly that the independent branch says it does not exist from its own side. There has to be the 50-50 participation. The thing appearing to me and me seeing it that way. It does not exist from its own side. The consequence branch also says that things don't exist from their own side. So that the detail of this gotcha, of it existing from its own side, we can say that the part that's appearing that way, that part's there, but it's missing this part. It's missing the seed ripening, and it's missing my participation in experiencing it as a pen. So it's saying that part, gone. This part, appearing as a pen, that's the gotcha, 100%. Coming from this side, not 50, 100%. So that is the thing we deny. In the independent branch. We're not negating that things appear to us. We're not saying anything crazy like that there is no pen, right? No, there's a pen. It appears to me to be a pen, and I think of it as a pen. 50-50. Everything around me, 50-50. My car is a car because it has some carness about it, and I perceive it as a car. The road is a road because it has some roadness about it, and I perceive it as a road. 50-50. The gotcha, the thing we deny, is the opposite of that, which is that the road is the road. And if you think like you're an ant and you think it's I don't know, what would you think it is? A huge field, very hard field, which is very large. I don't know. then you're wrong, because it's not. It's a road, 100%. So yes, and Wang Wu is asking about the definition of existence from the logic school, the sutrists, the Sautrantika in Sanskrit. They say existence is that which is perceived by an accurate perception or a valid perception. Um, and yeah, that's the everyone accepts that. What the logic school says. The logic school, they wouldn't have the same gotcha, but we don't have time to get into that right now because they have a different way of talking about what no self means. Let's go back to our magic show. So we have our magician, and we have all the people who are gathered around the magician. The magician throws down the stick. The magician says the spell and sprinkles the magic dust. And all of a sudden, the stick appears to be a horse. So to the people in the audience, they think there's a horse there, right? They all back up. Whoa, it's a huge horse. The magician, they know what they're doing. They know that because of their of the spell and because of the magic dust, they also see a horse, but they know that it's really a stick. They're not fooled by the horse. They see the horse as an illusion. Someone comes walking up after the spell is said and after the magic dust is sprinkled. Someone walks up and sees, oh, there's a gathering of people there, and sees them all backing up like they're frightened of whatever it is. And they're very curious. Wow, what is in there? And they look and they see a stick on the ground. What is going on? Why are these people afraid of a stick on the ground? That person's not fooled because that person didn't hear the spell and they didn't get the magic dust in their eyes. So we have these three characters, if you will, in this metaphor. We have the magician, we have the audience, and then we have the latecomer, the one who's not affected by the spell or the incantation, right? So these three characters represent, as you might imagine, represent people on the spiritual journey. The people in the audience, they represent sosokyewo, which is just means ordinary person. Ordinary person. Someone who has not yet seen emptiness directly. They see things as having some nature of being what they are from their own side. They see this pen as having penness. Not only having penness, it is a pen. 100% coming this way. So those are the people in the audience. The magician is Jetop Jangsem Pakpa. This is a bodhisattva Arya, not in the direct perception of emptiness. Jetop, that means after, which just refers to, walking around time. They're not in deep meditation and the direct perception of emptiness. So the magician sees things coming this way. Things appear to the magician to be coming from their own side. But they're not fooled. They have a cessation of doubt, right? Because they saw emptiness directly. And then Tongi Ngung Sung Du Tokbe Lopa. This is the latecomer. They're not deceived. They are someone who is it Lopa, if you remember, Lopa is, if you remember, we talked about this word before. It means still learning, which means it's the second half of the third path of seeing, up to through the path of habituation, before the path of no more learning. And then Tongni Ngung Sung Du Tokpe. Tokpe is realization. Lun Sung means directly. And Tongni is a shortcut for Tongpani, which is emptiness. So this is someone who's they're an Arya. So they're in the latter part of the path, but they're in the direct perception of emptiness. So things aren't appearing to them at all, right? Their experience is of an absence. Emptiness is an absence. They're not experiencing the appearance of a horse. So we can use this in our day-to-day life. As I said the other day, I probably said it lots more than once. Anytime we feel some disturbance in our mind, some disturbance of our peace of mind, it's because we're mistaken. And what is this mistake? It's the gotcha. We're thinking that something is going on. Like, for example, someone's hurting us, or someone's yelling at us from their own side. And that doesn't exist at all. There is no yelling. coming at me 100%. Remember, from the independent branch, there's got to be the 50-50 going on. But when we're in day-to-day life and things, and we're experiencing troubles, our peace of mind is disturbed. That's a clue. Oh, I'm mistaken. What am I mistaken about? We can use that to investigate. We can then later take it to our meditation cushion and examine, how does that really exist? Is it true that the yelling comes 100% from the other person? Is it true I have nothing whatsoever to do with it? Being yelled at. Not my fault. I didn't do anything. So it gives us these disturbances, help us see where we're mistaken, help us identify what that gotcha is. And we can use meditations on emptiness, which we're going to learn different forms, to slice and dice that misunderstanding, so that next, when we're out walking around in the world and someone yells at us, we can remember, oh, I investigated this. There's not yelling coming from that I have nothing to do with. It's not true. And our peace of mind can be preserved. Oh, that's yelling. I'm not going to yell back. I'm not going to get disturbed even, because that would just plant seeds for future disturbances. And I don't like that. I rather like peace of mind. I would like to have peace of mind all the time. Okay, any questions? Next time we're going to start to get into different proofs of emptiness, and maybe if I can learn to not talk so much, then maybe we could even do a meditation. I'll try and make that happen. Okay, it'd be nice to meditate together, unless it's too late. Is it too late at night for you to meditate? For those of you for whom it is night, are you too sleepy? You can send me an anonymous chat. I won't tell anyone. Okay, so let's dedicate our time spent together here, and the things we've learned more clearly about what it is that we're saying emptiness is empty of. May our understanding lead us to the direct perception of emptiness. Sashi Buki Chukshi Meto Tra Rira Blinchi Nyende Gempadi Sangye Shingdu Mikte Owargi Trokun Namdak Shingla Chuparsho Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kamnirya Tayami. Kewadi Keo Sunam yeshe zok zok shin. Sunam yeshe lejue. Tampa kuni topar sho. Thank you so much for your interest in these ideas for your practice. Thank you, live translators. Thank you, Geshe Michael, for sharing these teachings with us. Okay, have a great couple days. See if you can recognize the gotcha as you're walking around.
Thank you so much, teacher.
Thank
My
you so much,
distinct
teacher.
pleasure. There's nothing better I could do.
Please stay with us.
Okay. Okay, see you on Friday.
Благодарю.
Thank you, teacher.